Okay, my name is Ronny Jordan. I'm from London. I'm a UK recording artist with Island Records.
You just made a new album, Into the Light.
Into Dark.
Into Dark, yeah.
Light to Dark.
I thought it's a strange title for a positive album.
Light to Dark. Well, I chose that title because it's broad. It's my third album. I mean, if I had named the album Free, then you wouldn't be asking what does the album mean. Free.
What does it mean?
Well, Light to Dark. It means a transition in life. It could mean almost anything. I mean, for me, I felt that was the best way to describe the title of the album. The album has light moods, dark moods to it, and I just felt it was audible enough. Not only that, but other people will interpret it their own way, and I just felt it was best to leave it open.
Yeah, because I got your album, I listened to it a couple of times. I was like, the guitar is like your main instrument, right? And it describes the mood of the song, so it must be hard to pick a title for every song.
It is hard, but a lot of the songs that were written there came from personal experiences that I've experienced in my lifetime, and therefore I just felt it was best to channel that through the music.
Could you give me an example? Like, for instance, The Law, what is it about?
Well, the law, it's about the unspoken laws. In your everyday life, you go out the streets, you see the bus queues, you see the train stations, you see the post offices and banks, people are queuing up. You see the law, protects us, and it can also destroy us. The law requires you to earn a living. The law requires you to pay your bills on time. If you don't pay your bills on time, then another law comes into effect. If you step on the wrong side of the law, then the law will deal with you harshly. Well, not harshly, but it will deal with you in a bad way. So therefore, that song was just basically to explain what the law meant, the spoken laws and the unspoken laws.
There's a couple of influences at least I got from your album, Into the Light. I hear Sly and Robbie in there. Do you agree?
Oh, Into the Light?
Yeah.
Sly and Robbie?
Yeah.
Does it sound like Sly and Robbie?
Oh no, influences. It doesn't sound like. It sounds like Ronny Jordan.
Yeah, but you think influenced by Sly and Robbie? Oh no, absolutely no, not at all. I mean, Into the Light. I mean, if you correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the intro. The very first intro on the album. Oh no, nothing at all to do with Sly and Robbie.
So what does that have to do with?
It was just a piece to lead into the album. That's all it was, and we just called it Into the Light. But I mean, Into the Light, it basically means birth. You're coming away from your mother's womb. You're coming into an open light, into the world. You're introducing yourself for the first time. And if you listen to the very end of the album, The Last Goodbye, it's when death comes, and you say goodbye to life.
But what are your influences on your album? I mean, there must be artists you like, or...
Well, I describe the album as 70s feel with a 90s approach. All the musicians on the album, including myself, were all influenced by the 70s style of music, and I was lucky enough to...
Can you name me any artists?
Beg your pardon?
Can you name me any names or artists?
Oh, I mean... Miles Davis, George Benson, Donald Byrd, Eddie Henderson, Herbie Hancock, George Duke, Stanley Clarke, Ramsey Lewis.
Okay, enough.
I mean, it's just some Chaka Khan, Rufus, Quincy Jones. I can go on naming them, but there's a lot of influences from the 70s, and that was a decade where I grew, into a musician. I became focused on certain styles. I came to prominence. I was able to digest in, because I was 8 years old when the 70s started. Well, 7 to 8 years old. So I was able to digest in the sounds. Even Bob Marley and the Wailers, all these sounds were coming in. Jimi Hendrix, funky sounds. And, when I say 70s feel with a 90s approach, the 70s feel is from the human element. From, the sounds, wah-wah guitars, Hammond organ, Fender Rhodes, slap bass. That's the 70s feel. And the 90s approach is really more from the rhythmic point of view, from the drum programming, technology. You're in the 90s and you do a groove record, it has to groove. It has to sit.
Yeah, because that was my next question. There's a brilliant production on your album.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, the thing is, I was in a way disappointed with the last album because I was not in control. The last album, meaning the Quiet Revolution, I only chose one song on that album. That was Tinseltown. And I was disappointed. I felt that I took 10 steps with The Antidote, my first album, and I kind of took 5 steps back with the Quiet Revolution. And the reason why that was happening with the second album was because there was a lot of things going on at the time. Because of the success of So What, I was touring the world in a short space of time, and I had to really learn fast, and I was pretty new to the industry. And by the time the Quiet Revolution came, the album was started too early, because The Antidote hadn't even been out for a year. 8 months after The Antidote was released, I was studying on the Quiet Revolution. And, I was forced into that situation. And if I'd known, I would have waited 18 months before I started. And I needed to take a break, and I didn't take a break. But after the Quiet Revolution, I took 6 months out. And I was able to reflect on things that had happened and what direction I wanted to go into. And I started writing the songs for the new album.
The beats on your album, are they drums, or are they computers, or are they samples?
It's a combination. It's programmed, and some of it. It's mainly programmed, really.
Really?
Yeah, it's mainly programmed. Yeah,
No,
it's.
totally live.
Well, absolutely. You see, the thing is, if you check the 70s, right, certain records, favourite records of mine, the drums, great grooves, they slightly speeded up, or they slightly slowed down. In those days, it was accepted. But nowadays, in the 90s, whether you're an R&B group, funk, reggae, soul, jazz, funk, if you do a groove, it has to sit. It has to be the same from start to finish, i.e. computers. And so we use computers, and we try to get the right approach. We try to get the tempos right, first of all, so the song's not too fast or too slow. Once the tempo is just right for the song, we set about the drums, and we get it done in such a way that it sounds real. And the advantage of doing that is if you get a drummer with a live kit to play, you can work on his sound, and his sound will sound good. But you can get better sounds if you program, because there's literally hundreds of sounds at your disposal. You have access to all these different kick drums, snare drums, and
Still, there's like until now, the sounds that have been used in computers were like recognizable. You can hear on an album like, oh, this is a Roland computer, or this is I don't know, whatever computer. You can recognize computer sounds, but on your album, that's totally impossible.
Yeah, well, it's all drum machines, and some of it's computer, not all of it's computer, but it's all programming. But it's all done with a human element feel to it, so the tempo's just right.
Brilliant. There's a lot of hip-hop, jazz, groove crossover nowadays. The Fugees are big, you know them. Would you ever consider to call like a hip-hop artist to collaborate on your album?
No. I mean, to be honest, I think in my albums you'll probably find there's a lot more musical depth to them. It's not all beats and grooves like a lot of records, Because I've been a musician, before I got into beats, I was a musician, pure and simple. And so therefore the musical thing's going to come out. And so it makes my albums that different.
But I mean, there are live bands going on, like with hip-hop crews as well, or people who kind of like toast or reggae, put the toast reggae style together with the jazz style. You wouldn't know that as well?
Not really. I mean, I just do what comes to me naturally,
This album of yours is dedicated to Denny Cordell.
Yes, Denny was one of the founders of Island Records, my label, and he discovered the Cranberries and U2.
Thank you.
And he was very instrumental in getting me exposed in America. And when I recorded The Antidote, it was such a different album. You heard The Antidote?
Yeah, I heard it.
Yes, it was such a different album to what was out there, and no one had heard anything like it. And some of the record company at the time didn't know who I was, and a lot of them some of them expressed some doubt as to whether it would do anything. But Denny stuck his neck out for me, and he was pretty much my biggest champion in that. Well, sadly, Denny died, and I just felt that it was fitting that, I should dedicate the album to him.
And that also reflects on songs on the album. I mean, this experience of yours, because he was called a friend to you, Denny.
Well, Light to Dark, again, I mean, the actual song was actually written because, when you've known someone for a while, and I'm sure you've had friends or relatives that have died, when they die, it's like they were a shining light to you. And once they're gone, that light is out, it's darkness. So, that's another way, I suppose you could describe that tune, Light to Dark.
That's a beautiful way to say that. Are you a religious man?
I'm not a churchgoer, but I do believe that there is a supreme being up there. And the reason why I believe that is the fact that I was 4 years old when I started playing guitar, and I was self-taught. I never went to school, and that was a gift from the supreme being, and because of that, I believe in him.
But you don't go to church. Why not?
Well, funny enough, I haven't been to church for years, but I did go to church a few weeks ago. But that was because there was a christening. A baby was being christened, and I hadn't been for a long time. And they were singing these songs, and I felt pretty bad because a lot of these songs I used to know and remember when I was a kid. But now I went there and they were singing these songs. I forgot the words. I just completely, because of all this music that I do, it's totally erased,
You think club DJs on your album as well. Why is that?
I beg your pardon?
You think club DJs on your album as well?
Do I have club DJs?
No, you think them on your album.
Oh yes. The reason being is, they have supported my music. Club DJs, fans, and fellow artists as well. Big name artists have given me encouragement, and it was just too numerous to name. But they've always supported my music, and in a way, this album's for them.
You live in London, right? What are the best clubs to hear your style of music in London?
I beg your pardon?
What are the best clubs to hear your style of music in London?
Wow, they pretty much play everywhere. Wow, I mean, there's just so many clubs. I mean, they play at...
What are your favorite clubs? Where can I find you?
Well, to be honest with you, I've not really been to clubs for quite a while now. I used to go years ago, but when I used to go to clubs, there was a club in London called Crackers, which was very exciting. It was in West 1, and that was a pretty hip place. Nowadays, because I tour and I go abroad and I fly out a lot, whenever I get home, I tend to just be a homeboy, I chill out. I sort of go underground. Nobody can find me. Because, it's like I have to make the use of my home life. So I don't really go to clubs anymore. But Crackers have been closed down, which is a shame. Because when I went there, it was the funkiest place going. Serious joint.
You've been touring all over the world.
Yeah.
You've been in Tokyo, right, too, in Japan.
I've been to...
You've been in Japan as well?
I've been in Japan, Tokyo. I've been to Australia.
How's Japan? Because of your wild stories about Japan.
It was fantastic, brilliant. I'm going there again. It's a wild place. It's, they really have taken to my music in a big way, and I really enjoy myself. Japan's great. It's a great market for me.
I hear people in Japan are far more positive and far more enthusiastic about music and about stars, quote unquote.
Oh, they are. They appreciate the fact that you can sort of leave from where you are and come to play for them. They appreciate that, and I always try to give my best there, because, they spend a lot of money. I don't know how many guilders they spend. I know it's not very, I know it's Dutch currency and yen. I can't actually compare the two, but they spend a lot of money. And, I tend to always want to give them.